our party got through the Temple of the Archheart and fought the Alyxian Aboleth, and we're going to talk about it. So let's dig in. Before we dive into what actually happened, let's talk about what went well. And I feel like the thing that went well this session is having Iris lose her powers when my party started attacking the Alyxian Aboleth and its spawn in the kelp forest. She didn't love it, but I feel like for the story and everything, I feel like it worked out really well. And she's kind of at a loss, which is kind of a different place for her character to be. What could be better? I feel like the fight with the Alyxian Aboleth, who's supposed to be the patron of a warlock, didn't really feel as tough as it could have been. I probably should have beefed up the stat block a little bit. It was tough, but I feel like it could have been a little bit tougher. That might just be my perspective. Okay, so let's talk about what actually happened. My party woke up in the villa underground in Cael Morrow. They had just taken a long rest with the tiny hut, and after the long rest, Trixie and Dmitri both made their saves because they were both under effects from the Aboleth. After that, they searched around the villa for a little bit and found the rest of the treasure that was there, and they spent a little bit of time talking about what they wanted to do next and decided that they wanted to head up north towards the watchtower so they could go talk to the priest of Corlan. They found out that there was a priest of Corlan there from the ghosts that were in M10, and if you remember, we switched to M10 and M8 a few sessions ago. They get there, and they walk up and knock on the door, and they are greeted by some sword wraiths, who question them about why they're there, what their motives are, why they're in Cael Morrow, that kind of thing, and after doing some back and forth talking, the sword wraith says, okay, come on in, you can talk to the priest, but we're kind of watching. A whole bunch of sword wraiths kind of escort them up to the balcony where the priest was, and the priest kind of, same rigmarole, asks them the same types of questions, and decides that they are worthy enough to help out, and he asks if they have any questions for him. A little bit of back and forth between my party and the priest. They kind of got some more information about Alyxian, what he was like at the time of the calamity. Then they asked if the priest would take them into the Temple of the Archheart, so that's where they headed, straight over there. They got in, the priest did some voodoo, got them in, and they had their first vision of Alyxian praying to the statue of Corlan in the temple. As soon as that was over, Dmitri headed straight for the statue to pray to Corlan of sorts, and at that same time, Trixie, our artificer / wizard, went to go investigate the crystal that's sitting in the middle of the temple there. And as soon as she got close, she made her save, so she continued forward, and as soon as she got close, they had the second vision of Alyxian. They were falling, and eventually they see Alyxian and see that he is in the dark abyss, and they're like, okay, for sure we think now that the Aboleth is not Alyxian, we should go take him out next. After their vision, they come back. Dmitri felt this warm, comforting feeling after talking to Corlan and having this vision. He looks down and sees that he has a brand new ring on his finger, and the rest of my party's like, what? And they all look down and see. Everybody's got a new ring except for Iris, who has the jewel in its exalted state now. Then they spent some time just kind of investigating the temple. They asked the priest to come in and see if he knew anything. He said, nah, there's not a lot going on here. It's just a place of worship. We've been in and out throughout the years, but there's no goodies in here. And he talked with Jemmy for a good long while about who Corlan is and the ideals that Corlan represents. After all of that, my party heads to the kelp forest, believing that the Aboleth is not Alyxian and that there is still some sort of connection between the two that's unnatural, and maybe if they kill it, they'll break that connection and be able to save Alyxian. They head into the kelp forest, they run into two Aboleth spawn, and immediately Jimmy's like, well, should we attack them or not? And I think it was Dmitri was first in the initiative order, just like went in and started punching. And so, there we go. As soon as that started happening, Iris gets a message from her patron and says, why are you doing this, basically? You should be here to help me, not hurt me. And Iris is like, I'm not hurting you, I'm hurting whatever these things are. And she loses her powers. They were gone for the whole fight. They fight the two Aboleth spawn for a few rounds before the Alyxian Aboleth itself shows up. And at that point, my party's like, okay, this is serious. Then they start casting their big spells. So Trixie casts haste on Chozen, who at one point did close to 100 damage in one round to the enemies. So having seen that, the Aboleth charmed Chozen. Iris did as best as she could without her powers from her patron. She did get some hints from the patron of her previous lives, and she just needs to be patient. Jimmy did his best to keep his distance and was just shooting at them with crossbows. He also did a little bit of healing to keep people in the fight. Dmitri basically stuck to the Aboleth spawn most of the fight and actually took out both of the Aboleth spawn while the rest of the party kind of took on the Alyxian Aboleth. And after a few more rounds of combat, the Alyxian Aboleth did finally fall, which left Iris feeling incredibly gloomy, empty. After the fight, she tried to reach out to Alyxian himself, and there was no response. So she's feeling pretty abandoned right now. Iris is actually played by my wife, and I got dirty looks all throughout the entire session. And afterwards as well, she's like, how do I get my powers back? So we're going to work that in. It was all part of the plan anyway. After they go and finish off the fight, they spend a little bit looking through the kelp forest and like, why are they protecting this? And they find the loot. So they do all that and they're like, all right, well, what do we do now? Do we head straight to the Netherdeep? We're not rested. They're missing spell slots. A lot of them are not fully healed even after a short rest. So they're like, all right, well, let's reach out to the Cobalt Soul. We have these sending stones. Let's reach out and see what they have to say about the Netherdeep. In previous sessions, I had let them know that if they go there, there's potential for them to get harmed. There's a really intense pressure there. So like, let's reach out and see if the Cobalt Soul knows anything. They have a sending stone with Question. Reached out to Question, and Question's like, I don't know, that's kind of above my pay grade. You can come in and talk to Jamil. He wants to talk to you guys anyway to see how things have been going down there. And my party's like, all right, well, do we risk it and just go? Or do we head back? And eventually, I mean, it was probably like 30 minutes of discussion before they decided, all right, let's just head back up and regroup, and we'll head back down later. They head back. On their way, they pass through Insight again and hand her off the extra tablets that they had found while they were down here so that she can continue her research. And then they head back up to Ank'Harel, where they visit the Cobalt Soul once again, let him know what happened. They decided to be 100% truthful. There was some debate there whether or not they were going to tell him that they got the key from the Death Embrace in the villa. They did end up letting him know that they have the key, so Jamil's like, all right, sounds good. I need to go and talk to the Allegiance, and I need to talk to other members of the Library of the Cobalt Soul, get more information. It's going to take me a few days. I'll let you know what I find out, and we can meet back up together. And then I had my party level up to level 9, and that is where we ended our session. Really exciting stuff. I'm super excited to see what they choose to do from here. They talked about going and finishing up the fight tournament, and then they've also talked about just going straight into the Netherdeep. So we'll see what happens from here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Huge shout out to my patrons. You guys are the best. We'll see you in the next one.